got started at the front here. My plan is to come out a little bit, we'll 45, we'll go up, and then that'll kind of turn into the front of the machine where the windshield is and everything, and all the snowplow mounts will come off of the front there. So the front end of this thing's going to be beefed up quite nice and strong. We're using some really heavy tubing here, so that it should handle all the forces we're going to put on this. And then we're using this base frame as just a clamping jig. I'm cutting all the intermediate sections here, squaring everything up to the first axle. I'm kind of using that as my reference point and build backwards. So if I'm not square here, it's just gonna get worse and worse as I go down. So I'm gonna stay really true, and then I might even stretch a wire or something and just check everything. I'm just gonna go along and tack, probably leave a few clamps in place here and there just to keep everything nice and tight until I can roll it around and get it welded enough that I can manhandle it a bit. But it's taking shape. Really excited. Yeah, there's going to be a lot of fun parts of this to come. There's a lot of this build I haven't told you about yet. It's going to involve a ton of custom work. It's going to involve, aluminum fab, some bead rolling, sheet metal work, 3D printing, casting urethane, hydraulics, hydrostatics. It's going to be fun. I'm looking forward to this build. Back in the shop today, continue on building the chassis here. I've been puttering away, getting everything lined up, and I've started tacking in all these center sections. And I'm basically leapfrogging clamps here, clamping the axles, putting in a center section, making sure my inside width is correct, everything is square, and then I'm just tapping with my hammer, tap everything in, get it right to where we want, add a second set of clamps, tack, and then move the other set of the inside clamps here over to the axle, do the same thing, check my widths, check square, tap everything in, and it's turning out pretty good. It's hard to tell, but I am looking bang on by eye. And to be honest, if it's out even 1/8 of an inch, there's a lot of air that the tires and track assemblies will take up. So it's not a super critical thing, but always try and shoot for the best and then end up with what we end up with. So I'm just going to continue on doing this. It's a bit hard to get action working shots right now. The camera still hasn't shown up. Our shippers around here are being really brutal, so waiting on that. So it's mainly do a bit of work, video and update, and I'm liking doing the shorter videos and more of them. I find people probably only want to watch 5 to 10 minutes at a time. So yeah, I'm gonna keep going on this, and it's gonna turn into something here by the end of the day. Well, progress is coming along pretty good. It's really just been going together, no problems. Everything seems lined up, and it's staying square and looking really good. Center tires aren't actually bolted on, so they look a little wobbly. But there it is. Chassis coming together. A couple more hours, and it will main chassis will all be together. I'll get the top rails on, and all the verticals and the triangulation in there, which is gonna just make this unbelievably rigid. Probably didn't need to go this heavy wall on the tubing, given all the bracing going into it, but I didn't feel like cheaping out and going thin wall and wind up twisting chassis or axles or something. I mean, it's gonna have a big blade on the front, so likely it's gonna be abused like any machine is. So I'd rather other points fail that are easier to replace than the main frame. So really loving how it's coming together. figure this is a good place to take a pause and just kind of talk about what I've been doing here. So I did get the fronts and the backs all mocked up and welded in yesterday. And then I realized I had forgot to cut the 45s on the tops. And I was thinking about avoiding that and just putting other tubing on top to seal it off, but I really like the idea of kind of fully cutting all the joints and sealing everything off together, and then when I weld in the cross tubes, it really ties everything together a little bit better. So I went ahead, cut the tacks, went backwards for half an hour, which is, it's fine, happens. Didn't worry about it. I did have to shrink the overall length of the vehicle. By the time I got everything tacked in and took my final measurements, I was 1.5 inches over, because ultimately the two top rails came out a 24-foot length, 2-inch by 250 wall, and that was the last full length I had left. So that was really my determining factor. So I cut 1 inch out of the back and 1/2 inch out of the front at the same time, and I'm pretty happy with overall measurements. Everything is pretty heavily tacked in. I'll probably grind some of that down before I do full welding. If you've ever seen spool gunning, it isn't clean at all. It's quite a dirty process, lots of wire brushing, acetone. You always want to be wearing a respirator. That's a key there. It helps cut the ozone down that's created, not to mention all the fumes. I did get everything fully welded in on the top side and ground down. I hate grinding. It's usually why I work with aluminum, but I needed to flush that up for all my vertical supports that I'm gonna just start cutting here shortly. Get those cut, put in. When all those are welded in, then I'm gonna go ahead and cut all the diagonals. This thing is gonna be way over braced for what it is. Keeping in mind the side paneling I put on too is gonna help a lot with bracing and rigidity. But you know what, in my experience, anything that has a plow on the front, you are going to abuse that and push it as hard as you can. So I think, as I said earlier, the one thing I'm not gonna shy on is building a very, very heavy duty frame, because everything after that is replaceable. We can fix pumps, we can fix motors, we can change all of that, but the frame is the core. So we're gonna do it right. It's amazing how fast sometimes things just come together for you. I couldn't be happier. I don't have any of the angle bracing in yet, but I just couldn't help myself. I had to put the tires on it, get it on the ground, and see what this is looking like, and I love it. The frame underneath is just still there to help it out. It's only tacked, so that'll come off, but I'm leaving it clamped for now to keep it all square. I love it. Oh, this is gonna be exciting.